All right, now I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, everyone. How's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming at you today with a OMI is my homie, episode number 88 with Crypto Rain. Are alts finally going to pump? The future of OMI. Everyone say hello to Dashi. Hello, Dashi. My man, how you doing?
So good.
It's same. It's been a lot of good times, a lot of good things happening. I was supposed to call you before, but then I didn't. But we'll talk after. Anyway, lots of interesting stuff going on for us, and then a lot of interesting stuff in the world since last week. Shout out to our people.
I know, that's an understatement.
Shout out to Bill Gardner saying, "Let's get this bread." Booth saying, "What that?" Kuma saying, "What up?" Number 88. Yes, if we were a VeVe collectible, this would be a valuable one. Echo712 says, "What up?" So everyone comment F down below to pay respect for the Iranian rial, because that currency is dunzo. Like it is, it's weird. The opposite happened in Venezuela. We took out their leader and their stock market went up like 1,500%. But for Iran, where it's not exactly happening like that, it's stuff, the revolution seems to be coming from the people. Although Trump said help is on the way. I don't know what that means. But that seems to be that a bunch of other things seem to be pumping the market. What's your take on this craziness?
The government's still in power, and they are massively printing their fiat right now, and so I mean that's part of the reason for this upheaval is that their savings are being wiped out. So yeah, now in Iran's leaders are not yet removed, so if you all of a sudden saw their leaders removed, maybe you would see their currency go up in value.
That's possible as well, or at least whatever's going on with their stock market. I don't know. Does Iran even have a stock market?
I don't know. There's such a closed ecosystem, right? Like how the crazies ever got in power in Iran is suspect. Seems like, I don't know, Jimmy Carter, the CIA, like just they wanted it to happen. If they didn't want it to happen, they didn't do much to stop it. And so you had a bunch of crazies using university students to take over. And Iran has some of the most industrious, hardworking, smartest people in the world. And I hate to see it. Like Iranians are amazing business people, and they're so smart. And the crazies run the village over there now. And yeah, I hate it. So at least one crazy in the world is out this last week. Good to see. It was sad seeing Venezuela go to Hugo Chavez under, "I am going to make you all so good and so rich using socialism, and we're going to make everything fair." And that didn't happen. Of course it didn't. It never does. Socialism is destroyed, and communism has destroyed more countries than the plague.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of universities do not teach that. They actually teach the opposite. They teach like, oh, if we just try it this way, then it'll be good.
Wrong people have run it. It's like it's always the wrong people who are attracted to selling people on that message. I mean, the right people that would run it well don't want to run it. They want to create a capitalist society where everyone's incentivized to work their hardest, not to live off of what they're reallocating from someone else who's working hard.
Yeah, I like that quote that eventually you run out of other people's money.
That's exactly what it is. And nobody's incentivized to work their hardest. And so incentives dictate behavior. And in socialism, the incentive is everyone get a free ride so someone else can work hard so you can live better. And so everyone stops working hard. And of course, every society that goes that way eventually fails. It's amazing some of them persisted as long as they did. But the reason is a third of the population will work hard no matter what the incentives are. Maybe they won't work as hard, but they'll work fairly hard because they take pride in their work. But if you remove my incentives, then I'm incentive motivated. So pay me really well to do an amazing job. I'll do an amazing job. Pay me nothing to do an amazing job, and I'll go find something else to do. So I would fail under socialism completely.
Yeah, there's I feel like California is they've been trying to do something similar with that, just raising taxes. They also have a new wealth tax that they're trying to impose, where it says that you are going to be taxed on illiquid stocks if those stocks like go up, shares in companies. So you would have to find a way to sell those that triggers more tax sales. Like it's just, they say they're going after the billionaires, which make up, I think, several trillion. But that is, to me, a very inefficient way to try to get what they really want is probably the middle class, and they probably want to do that to them as well. But right now it's being said like, yeah, we're going to do that to billionaires. And even like the people, like some business people on the left that are just like, hey, listen, I'm all for paying your fair share, but this is ridiculous. And you get a bunch of people moving out of California, and then there'll be less and less trillionaires or less and less billionaires, and then you'll have less people to tax.
See, the power in such rules is the power to be able to exempt people. So like Gavin Newsom, when they were carving out this minimum wage increase, they carved out some exceptions. And one of the exceptions was, well, if you sell at your fast food place baked bread in its entirety and it weighs over a certain amount, then you're exempt from the minimum wage tax. Well, it was specifically carved out by Gavin Newsom for his friend who created Panera Bread to give his friend an exemption. And you know what? He'd been getting all kinds of campaign contributions. So when they create these rules because it gives them more power. And to get exempted, you have to come in and lobby the heck out of that person. So realize they don't really care about the poor people. They aren't trying to tax the rich. They're trying to create rules that they can then create exceptions for those who give them huge campaign contributions. This is how they run. So they're not trying to create a fair playing field for everyone to do well on. They're trying to give the referees so much power that then everyone learns the game is to bribe the referees. That's what Gavin Newsom seems to be after. Joe Biden. I mean, that was Joe Biden and started by Obama's presidency. And now I wish Republicans weren't also this way. A bunch of them are, not all of them. I don't see that actually from Trump. But there are plenty of Republicans in Washington that are that way. Washington is filled with people like that. That's why it's so hard to get rid of this kind of stuff. We're seeing that in the crypto bill that we all want passed is banks who, you know what, pay the refs a lot of money are trying to come in and change the rules. So DeFi is required to have KYC, which will essentially shut DeFi down. They're also trying to make it so companies can't pay yields on stable coins so that the banks don't have the competition, because why would you keep your money in a bank if you get a 6% yield on your stable coin?
I don't know who Jared from Satellite Beach is, and I don't know which way they're seeing this. If I'm on the left or they're on the left, but one of us looks like Jared from Satellite Beach. Anyway, Senator Cynthia Lummis is begging them to pass crypto legislation, the Clarity Bill. I don't know when. Do you know when they vote on that?
No, and I want them to pass a good Clarity Bill, not packed with all the banks are spending tons of money right now trying to change this so that DeFi gets wrecked, and I don't want to see that. Yeah. I want to see that people can put up a site so you can have DeFi without the KYC. And banks are trying to make it so it's so cost prohibitive that essentially it sinks DeFi. And so banks are trying to enshrine their monopoly. Well, part of crypto was set up to get rid of that monopoly. So this is the banks fighting back. And as you get down the finish line, it's like, I'm so anxious for the Clarity Act to get passed. I'd rather see good legislation passed than hurry through some things that kill DeFi.
So that's in there right now, you said? That's in the bill right now? Okay.
What? Killing DeFi? They're trying to. I don't know where it's at, but the banks are absolutely trying to get that in.
If so, for the decentralized finance, like that, that kills a lot. But what exactly comes from that? Is it a lot of exchanges? Is it a lot of NFT projects? Like who's the biggest loser in that from the DeFi area that gets affected?
Well, imagine if in order to use Uniswap, you had to KYC. Imagine if to use any DeFi protocol, you then have to complete KYC.
Yeah,
so then all these DeFi protocols have to get like a database that then keeps track of who all their users are, try not to get it hacked, and you just introduce huge amount of cost to anybody who wants to set up a decentralized exchange. And so then, that forces it to go to centralized exchanges, more things. Something like Uniswap may have the money to do something like that, but most decentralized exchanges won't.
Yeah.
So Mike is trying to go that way in Europe as well. And this is just this is just old money trying to fight against the new ideas because they don't want to have to adapt and change. They want to continue their monopoly. And this fight goes on whenever any new technology comes in. When the internet was coming in, like, do you think AT&T wanted voice over internet protocol? No, they did not. And they absolutely wanted to kill voice over internet protocol because they were charging 30 cents a minute for long distance within the same country. Oh, you want to call out of country? It's $2 or $3 a minute. So now with voice over internet protocol, you can essentially make calls to the other side of the world for next to nothing. Yeah. Why? Because the technology allows it. But AT&T didn't want that. Well, this change hurts banks who enjoy their monopoly quite a lot, and they don't want, they're especially particular on not having any kind of yield paid on stablecoins or DeFi in general.
I feel like they would change their tune if they all had their own stable coins, and they'd be like, oh, use our stable coins. These other stable coins from DeFi, they go down every now and then. They could talk to Luna, they could talk to all these other ones, a bunch of examples that had gone down because they weren't banks. They were these weird crypto things. But I think if banks get their own stable coins, then that's one of the things that they could probably get on board with.
Maybe they'd prefer just to keep things as they are right now, where they don't have the competition from stablecoin yields or very little competition because mass adoption hasn't happened. But if they can't get that, they may try to force it to, well, our stablecoins. But then that gets tricky. It's like, why just your stablecoins? So then they have to explain why their stablecoins are better than everyone else's. They don't want to have to exchange that.
Yeah, that's fair. Shout out to everyone in the comments here saying Canton will move JP Morgan's bank coin. JP Morgan have a stable coin?
They've been working on it. I'm not sure where in the stage it is, but yeah, they've been working on it for a while.
Linea is partnered with Swift and 30 other global banks. Linea is Joe Lubin, co-founder of Ethereum. That's a pretty good person to have behind there. What's up, Omar? Abe, even though he's 14 minutes late, first here again. Thank you, Abe, for being that way. Ironman616, we appreciate you reposting this stream. That means a lot to us. In other news, so speaking of banking and Federal Reserve stuff, Jerome Powell's under investigation, and I think that might be part of the reason that markets are booming a little bit, because I think if I'm his lawyer, and I was like, hey, listen, I'll take your money. You could pay me $3,000 an hour and I'll take it. But you're going to spend hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars trying to fight this. And you're out in May anyway. Just take the package that they're trying to give you and, just retire early. What are your thoughts on it?
Jerome Powell has been weird. So first of all, I feel like, I don't know if it's the deep state in the US or big government, like they have their hooks in Jerome Powell in some way because his policy decisions are a little bit interesting. First of all, is the run up to the election, even though inflation was massively high under Joe Biden, he decreased interest rates twice, which is normal in the lead up to election. But there was nothing normal about the massive inflation rates, but still he decreased rates 2 times, which was nice. Prior to the election, trying to get the economy booming a little bit for Joe Biden. And as soon as Joe Biden loses and he realizes Trump's going to be the president, well, he doesn't do another rate cut for like 14 months. And he cites, we have so much inflation. So under Trump, he changed some policies and stuff. Inflation was coming massively down. And it should have been coming down under Biden anyway. But Trump did some things to really take inflation the other direction massively by boosting productivity. So more goods and services being provided. and not so much money pumped into the system. And so inflation is coming down tremendously. And so inflation comes down tremendously, and yet Jerome Powell decides he's not going to lower interest rates, even though he said, oh, when inflation gets under this target rate, I'm going to lower interest rates. So it gets under that target rate, and he says, yeah. And for the longest time, he made this case. Yes, I see that inflation is coming down, but I have to use the facts as they are now, not what the projections are going to be. So I have to use the facts as we see them now, not based on what I think is going to happen. And it's like, okay, so that's your stance, and at least that's a position. What's weird is when inflation came under those numbers, Trump then imposed some tariffs to try to take care of what he felt was unfair trade. And then Jerome Powell's like, wait, I can't lower interest rates because even though inflation is really low right now, and it's under the limit of what I said I would lower interest rates, the future might have some inflation in the future. And it's like, wait. You're the same person that said you weren't going to lower interest rates because you have to use the facts as they are now. But now you're saying, oh, yes, based on the facts as they are now, I would lower interest rates. But I can't because what if inflation happens in the future with these tariffs? And it's like, you just argued against yourself. So what you're really saying is you don't want to lower interest rates while Trump is there. I mean, that's how I took it. Maybe it isn't that, but that's probably exactly what it is. In other words, I'm going to try to F the markets under Trump because I don't like it. So can you blame Trump for fighting back? Like, did he lie under oath to Congress about the $3 billion being sent on the federal building? Well, he specifically said, oh, yeah, no, this money is going to specific, like these audacious upgrades that is a palace built for the Federal Reserve. Why did Congress approve that? Well, I think that's how they got their hooks into Jerome Powell. It's like, we're going to build this massive Federal Reserve building, and we're going to pump first like 2.4 billion or whatever the number is, really high. Maybe it's 1.7, and then another 0.7 billion added like after the fact, like huge number for renovating the building and expanding it and making it a golden palace. It's like something is fishy in all of this with Jerome Powell, like his actions, everything. Like, I smell a rat here. And he gets up there, he's a really smooth talker, and his thing about, oh yeah, this is all about politics and I won't bow to political pressure. And it's like, I mean, and I use the facts as they are on the ground. It's like, do you use the facts as they are on the ground? I go off of economic projections. Your economic projection track record is really bad, Jerome Powell, and Trump's is better than yours. So what you're saying is, I don't care if Trump is right on these things and I'm wrong. I'm still not going to change my opinion because that would be bowing to political pressure. You just admit he was right that the tariffs didn't increase inflation like you said it would. It didn't at all. Inflation came down and you were wrong there. And maybe Trump is exactly right that you need to bring interest rates down tremendously. But for some reason, not based on facts, you're continuing the position of, I'm not going to go the route Trump wants me to, even though he's president, because I'm independent. Now, another word for independent is unaccountable. What he's saying is, I'm unaccountable and you can't hold me accountable. And I resist anything to hold me accountable. And accountable to who? Well, so if the U.S. people vote in a president and they vote in a Congress, well, that is the voice of the people expressed through their vote. What he's saying is, I'm not accountable to the American people as expressed by their vote. I disagree. So, that's the fight being waged, and hopefully he just steps down. Because why did he lie or shade the truth about those things? I don't know. I think because he truly thinks he's unaccountable. That he could go out there and say, oh yeah, there's no frivolous upgrades and stuff. This is all basic stuff, which isn't true. And then, like, the last thing he expected was he would then be facing a grand jury for lying over something stupid, but still lying. And this is just Trump saying, okay, you want to come up there and lie in front of Congress and stuff? Well, and like Trump says he didn't have anything to do with this. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But don't lie to Congress, which gives them an avenue. So this is Trump just trying to go the direction he thinks is best, bringing rates down and juicing the U.S. economy, which, you know, selfishly, I'm a crypto investor. I want rates down further. Why? Because that's massively going to increase money supply. And if money supply is massively increased, well, that's correlates more strongly to an altcoin rally than any other metric. So that's what will drive the altcoin rally, which is what I've been patiently waiting for.
We've all been patiently waiting. I had Believes on yesterday or 2 days ago, and he mentioned something similar to what you did, that there's a lot of liquidity in the markets, a lot of sellers exhaustion, and at some point we go back. And he thinks some point soon. Like, I know there's two camps. One camp thinks that we have one more giant sell-off in February, March, and then we have another camp that thinks like, hey, I think by February, March, we could have a completely different market than we do now. Now, the completely different market's probably just referencing Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, XRP, etc. But the consequences of that is, as those things go up and it starts rotating, Eric Trump said, I think 2 days ago, that there's going to be a massive amount of money rotating out of gold into Bitcoin. Does he have the greatest track record? No. Last year, he said it's a really good time to buy ETH at $3,000. It immediately went to $1,400. And then it went above that. And, you know, it's a little bit, I had a good day today. It was up like 7%. It was up to 3,300 at one point. I'm not sure what it is now. But yeah, he believes, like you, that we could be looking at a much different market in a few weeks. And again, the consequences of that, at the middle of the year, money starts to rotate and we start to get that alt season. Does that kind of line up with your timelines of what could happen?
There's so many variables in this timeline. I think the most likely scenario is that the pump comes a little bit later this year. With that said, that's what people believe. The altcoin rally is still coming. That's what they're all saying. So the truth is, the money usually, or the market usually catches you by surprise. So maybe it happens sooner. It could happen later, but we're seeing quantitative easing in full effect. Like, Trump is going to try to juice the economy in the run up to the midterms because he wants to do well, or his party to do well in the midterms, so he doesn't become a lame duck. Because if the House and Senate flips to Democrats, they're going to spend the whole next 2 years trying to impeach him for anything that they can find, anything that they can create. So he's going to do everything he can to get the economy really juiced, and that's, I mean, you're seeing him push hard for that. Jerome Powell, you know, facing a grand jury indictment over, you know, misstatements or false statements to Congress. And it's like, that's going to put pressure on him to step down. Now, whoever is really putting the political pressure, because I don't agree that Jerome Powell is acting with no political pressure on him. I think he's just hiding the political pressures that are on him. It seems like somebody is wanting him to act contrary to what Trump thinks should happen. Who that someone is, I don't know, but that's what makes his actions make more sense than anything else. And so whoever it is doesn't want him to step down, because once Trump points a replacement, interest rates are going to come down tremendously and the economy goes crazy, and then Democrats lose the midterms, and then they can't spend the next 2 years trying to impeach Trump.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot. I think what Democrats are trying to do now is, you know, they elected Mamdani. They're having this new law trying to get passed with again, that wealth tax in California. So I think Democrats think that the farther left they lean, the better they can do. And I think that's a very short-sighted plan. I think that's a very rough approach. I don't think that works out for them. And again, if Trump turns on those money printers to make them go burr, they would have done that for nothing. They wouldn't get elected. They'll get destroyed in the midterms. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we get a nice amount of money flowing in. And again, what does all season run beforehand? I hope so. That'd be great. Get a bunch of the degens.
The beauty of the United States is the setup of federalism, which is states can pass their own crazy, stupid laws if they want. And then people have a chance to leave those states if the politics gets crazy. And California has done an amazing job at driving out their population. And New York is like, wait, hold my beer. Mom Dami to the rescue. I am going to beat California by every metric of mass exodus, known to man. And so we'll see who does a better job at driving out their population faster. Their population of rich, successful people. They'll have plenty of people that live off the services, but they'll have no more producers to tax the hell out of because they'll all have left. And they'll just have all their voters still living there that they won't have any producers to take from. This is literally the book Atlas Shrugged living out live.
The problem is with a lot of New York on the coast, just New York and California, is that a lot of companies get these stipends and they get these funding from federal government if they have a certain amount of drug addicts and homeless people in their area. So they're not incentivized to do anything with them. They don't arrest the drug dealers because if they do, then the homeless people, addicts go elsewhere, and then they don't get those stipends and those funds. So they exacerbate the problem. They make it easy for homeless, and they try to encourage it almost. Oh, we'll give you food stamps, we'll give you this, and a portion of those funds do go to them, but not all of them. And people are making money hand over fist.
Not all of them. It's such a grift, like Gavin Newsom fight on homelessness, which let's pump all this money into it, which it just subsidized homelessness.
My day.
What is up, Doc?
What's up, gentlemen?
Solving the world's problems so that crypto can pump in the next number of months.
Thank you for doing that, gentlemen. That is some serious work you guys have been putting in. So appreciate that.
Yeah, we're trying our very best. And Carter of Goat Slayer says, hot take. They want exodus from California and New York to drive down real estate so that wealthy can buy in. Those damn homeless people don't leave in the eyesores financial landscape. There are conspiracy theories about that. What happened in the Palisades, what happened in Hawaii. Palisades obviously being more recent than Hawaii, where they were doing the absolute wrong thing. And they said like, oh, we're going to protect the people. We don't want these price gouging by these construction companies. And it's like, well, if you have the price gouging by these contractors, then you're going to have other contractors from other states come in at a much lower price. And then you're going to have the market just find what they need. And that would get the homes built quicker. But because they don't allow the price gouging, so they say, then there's only the set of companies that are in California that the rebuilding goes very slowly. And then a bunch of rich people come in and be like, hey, your home is worth nothing. The land is worth nothing. Let me buy it to you from 10 cents on the dollar so you can get back on your feet. And then they do because they have to. So again, we've seen that in Hawaii. We've seen that in Palisades. I assume you guys can think of other examples as well. But I definitely believe in that conspiracy.
Yeah.
We got, oh shoot.
Well, so we got Doc for about 15 minutes.
Yep.
Other than solving the world's problems, how do we solve crypto's problems?
Yeah, Doc, what do we do?
I mean, we need money to enter the system. We need liquidity. We really do. And I mean, I think Trump is trying to do that. Although that tweet on Friday about capping interest rates at 10% for credit cards for a year, that will do the opposite, actually, of bring liquidity into the market. What do you mean, why?
Okay,
so your credit cards, when they're issuing an interest rate, right, it's risk-based. And so they're saying, we're going to lend this amount of money to people because of default rates and things like that, this 26% to 30% or whatever, if you have a subprime credit card, that will make up for the people who default. So if you drop it down to 10%, now all of the people that they deem way more risky, right? So like, listen, the people with maybe 750 credit scores and above, they're going to be fine. Theirs won't be capped. But anyone below that, they're either going to really reduce your limit on what you can actually spend, or they're just not going to even approve you for a credit card anymore, right? And because they're like, look, we have to hedge our bets, right? And that 26% or that 36% that helps cover the cost of the people that do default. And now if we don't have that buffer, we're going to really clamp down on who we're going to lend to, right? So all of a sudden that liquidity is going to drop significantly. Those people won't be able to spend in the economy. So then small businesses, online businesses, those are all going to be impacted, and it will create a massive negative cascade that Trump does not want entering into a midterm year.
No
So
question.
that is not going to happen. Let me just say that. Like, I don't know where he came up with that. He had a dream and was like, this would be a great idea, and tweets it out. But I guarantee you cooler heads are going to prevail on that, because that is crazy. That is crazy.
Well, remember Trump's strategy often in negotiations is he starts the number when he's negotiating at an absurd rate. Like, he does this over and over again. And I used to do that when I was in strategic negotiations on buying houses. People say, never throw out the first offer. It's like, I love throwing out the first offer. So I would throw out an offer way better than I wanted. Say I want to buy a house for 100,000 to be profitable. And they want, of course, like 180,000. And I'm like, shoot, I'd be like, I can pay you $40,000 for this. Or it'd usually be like 38,772. And they're like, oh, shoot. Trump uses this over and over with negotiations. So I don't know that they should cap it. Yes, credit card companies are making an exorbitant amount of money. I would love to see more competition because that would solve it. But I like the market to determine what it is based on people's credit, not the government to determine what it is, because the government will always pick the wrong price. The market, if there's enough competitors, will always pick the right price because they'll have to compete with each other. And right now, there's 2 major credit cards, and then there's a handful of others. Like, you have Visa and MasterCard, the power players. You have American Express, and then a few other players. So just make it more competitive and don't cap interest rates, because you're right, Doc. That would be terrible. I would sooner think that would come from Mondami than Trump.
Yeah,
Good
well,
point. I wasn't thinking.
and Trump went out after, right, when they were talking about like rent controls, or there's something that was happening in Texas, or someone was trying to push that, and he was like, no, like you can't control markets. Like, oh, it was food prices. You can't cap food prices, right? Like this free market. And so I was like, well, wait, what are you doing here then? What are you doing with these credit cards? It's a free market like thing. But anyways, back to the main point, right, of crypto is we need that liquidity. And I mean, listen, another thing that Trump is doing that like I really don't agree with is going after Jerome Powell. Like, let's say that Jerome Powell is legit did like what he's being like accused of, right? Even if he did, you don't freaking do it while he's still as the Fed chair. Just wait. Do I think that Jerome Powell is playing fair right now, or that he is, as he claims, neutral? No, I don't believe that that's the case. I don't he's contradicted himself multiple times on his positions, right? And we've talked about that before. But my thing is you are spooking the crap out of markets right now by doing that, and so even if Jerome Powell bends and he lowers interest rates, the markets aren't going to trust that. He's doing that because that's what he sees in the economy now, right? And so the markets aren't going to react like he's going to want them to react. And so I'm like, listen, if Powell really is like guilty of that, which I don't know, right? Like, I have no opinion on that. But if he is, he steps down in May. That's still enough time to put in your own person and get them to drop the rates or whatever like that, and to justify that. But man, like I think that recently he's really shooting himself in the foot when it comes to trying to create a strong economy, and maybe what he wants is to kind of wreck the economy a little bit, and then say we're going to dump all this money into the economy, right, from the government, and do it that way. Like, maybe that's the strategy. And I'll tell you what, if that happens, that is great for crypto. But to solve the crypto problem, we need liquidity in the markets, and we need markets to get greedy, right? And we need to start seeing that. And the way that happens is price goes up because there's a lot of liquidity and people are buying, and that becomes a cycle. Then more people see that price go up. They get greedy and they want a piece of that pie, right? And they do that. So, yeah. More liquidity in the markets, gentlemen.
Yeah, I feel like that's coming, and that's coming soon or sooner. Soon as in 6 months from now, or sooner as in sooner than that. And so the right things are setting up, and right now the building is almost done burning, in my opinion. So it's really hard to tell, like, really when the bear market is going to end. And last year, the entire year was quite bad for crypto, which was a surprise to me that it went on so long. But they took so long to flip from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. And it wasn't until I saw the money supply growth charts and how they correlated to the rally, the altcoin rallies, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the big component that I've been missing in my analysis of the real driver with altcoins going crazy is just money supply growth is the major factor. Yes, Bitcoin going up and some of that rolling into altcoins, but more than that, pure liquidity in the markets going to risk on type assets.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Some of the risk, I mean, there's things that risk on that people would like, Bitcoin, ETH, you know, the top 20, 50 coins. And then there's some other stuff that people would deem even riskier. Nike sold Artifact back in December. It came out earlier this week that they had sold it. We don't know who they sold it to. And I think that there's a really negative light on NFTs right now. Are these, and I'm not even talking about digital collectibles. I'm even just talking about just NFTs in general. Are these too risky for people at first? What has to happen for liquidity, not just to go into crypto, but to trickle down into NFTs and digital collectibles?
Well, I think that by liquidity going into crypto, then there's this waterfall that happens, and it eventually does trickle down into that, right? Into the riskier assets. But it's got to go into the big ones first. And that's where people make substantial money because people are putting large amounts of money into those blue chips, right? And then from that, they can make substantial gains, even on like a 10% increase, a 20% increase, which I think right now, like I still do believe that there is a good probability that within the next 6 months, Bitcoin will surpass its previous all-time high. That it'll hit over 130,000 and go from there if all of this liquidity stuff starts to happen. And so that is about a 50% increase, right? And so when you're talking about tens of millions of dollars, or some of these individuals, some people hundreds of millions of dollars into these things, all of a sudden 50% increase in that, they've got a lot of money, and then they're saying what is next to pop, and it starts trickling down into that. But you know, I'll say one thing. I think a lot of us jumped on the hype train of NFTs, and we were too early, right?
Way
And
too early.
let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So, I just blanked out on the company. What is the company's name? But they basically starts with an S. It'll come to me in a second. But they basically fired 4,000 employees because they're like, oh, AI is going to take over everything. Like AI is going to help us with all this. We don't need you guys anymore. So they fired them. And now, like 4 months later, they're like, oh my gosh, like AI can't do everything that we thought it could. And now they're having to hire all these people back and probably having to pay them more, right? Because they're trying to get these people and they're just like, we really screwed up. And people are like, well, we don't trust you anymore, right? And I think that's kind of like what happened with NFTs, right? We were promised all of these things, and it is possible. It's going to happen, right? And what I mean by that is like really seeing like tokenized real estate, the tokenization of everything, having our NFTs be in games. We're starting to see that with Gunzilla, right? But like what I believed was going to happen with VeVe, right, is that my Spider-Man would act as a token, and I'd be able to have a special skin or something like that in a Marvel video game. That's still very possible, but like it hasn't happened yet. I believe it will. And so if VeVe's still around, and if they are one of the biggest players there, and they already have all these connections, that is still the way that can happen. And so, but as the market gets greedy, they're going to look at these smaller things. And I do think that there is a time and a day where NFTs will have a place again, as people begin to speculate again as to what NFTs are capable of, you know.
The biggest thing that blows most people out is patience, right? They're like, yeah, has it happened yet? And we were all kids at one time, and I don't know if you guys grew up really poor, but it's like you go on a long drive because your parents were not putting all the kids on an airplane, you know? So you do a long drive to visit grandma or grandpa or something. And it's like, oh, it felt like so long, even if it was a 7-hour drive or a 12-hour drive. And it's like, are we there yet? And you're an hour into the drive. And so it just feels like it'll never end. And this blows so many people out. I saw this when I did real estate investing for a number of years, that generally the market would be way down. With real estate, you just know that it takes a while to turn around and go the other way. And it feels like it'll never happen, and it does. The reason I moved to crypto is because the cycles aren't near as long in between. Like, they take a lot less time to go from a really low market to a really high market. And the volatility is so extreme in crypto that you can have things go up to crazy multiples. Like, you can have it go up 50x from what you were buying in the bear market at and what you started or what you sold off on average during the bull market. And you can't make those kind of multiples in other places. But patience blows out most people. I mean, I talk all the time about how 95% of people don't make meaningful money or flat out lose money in crypto. And most of those get blown out by impatience, or they aren't buying when it is low. They buy when everything already goes 50x, and they're like, yes, oh my gosh, crypto, I knew it. And then they want to jump in when, Todd McFarlane Batmans are going for 16,000. They're like, yes, these are the greatest thing ever. First Batman on the blockchain is going to be great. And it's like, yes, you're right, but 16,000 probably isn't the lows that you should have been buying at.
100%.
Agreed. There is, and again, we go with that two trains of thought. We could have a completely different market, in the next 2 months, or we might have to wait for alts for several more months after this. That being said, there are other stuff that I'm in that they have incredible technology. They have incredible use case. They solve a bunch of different problems. And one of them has a single-digit million. It's a seven-digit, seven-figure market cap. The other one's 8. OMI's at what, 45 million, $46 million market cap. That's still pretty high. I know the price has just been absolutely savaged, but it's still pretty high compared to a lot of other things that are solving not similar issues, because it's completely different, but companies similar to it as far as revenues and stuff. So OMI's actually held up pretty well comparatively compared to that. That being said, I was talking with I believe it's Crypto the other day, and then Will Brenner as well, Will Kiefer, Lori Brenner's husband, and he's still buying down here. He's like, yeah, a bunch of stuff, like Spider-Man could go lower, RESO could go lower, but he bought his third RESO, because a RESO at like $700 is like, these were 24,000 at one point. So yeah, of course I'm getting some here. And I don't know how many people like him it takes to say like, yeah, I'm going to get one, I'm going to get two, or just get multiple, one to keep, one to sell, one to trade, especially from the fact that, you're going to have all of these Dr. Collect posted about renting them. So I think that's going to be, the catalyst is coming at some point. You can only pull that rubber band back so far. But I wanted to ask you, and Doc, I know you have to go in like 2 minutes. Quick, what do you think VeVe should do after Nike just sold Artifact? Should VeVe try to go after that license? Should they try to get into, like Adidas if Nike's, failed there? How do you think VeVe should position themselves?
Well, I think we got to see like whoever bought Artifact, what they kind of do with it, right? I mean, because maybe if they start launching something, but I mean, do I think that these shoe companies or something like that are in the market for it now? I don't think so, right? I think Adidas is looking to be like, oh, like Nike just got out of that. Like, do we want to get into this, and why, right? Like the hype isn't there. But you know what is still there is fidgetals, right? So like, I mean, that's what I think. And Artifact had that, right? They had those shoes that went with it, which was so freaking cool, right? And listen, I love the fig pins. I love that collaboration. And I want more fig pins, right? But like getting clothing and stuff with these that are tied to NFTs, that are more unique. Like I think that there is still a market for that. If they can, and especially when you get to the collect chain where like there can be that, people believe that it's true ownership and things. I could store that in my cold wallet, whatever that is. I think that there is an opportunity, especially when there's things in the news like that, or let it die down and then hit up some of these companies, and maybe it's not Adidas, or just saying like, hey, can we do this small collaboration, like, and see how it goes, right? Like let's do like a little test or something like that. And maybe with that initial one, they say, you get all the funds from it. Like we're just going to cover our costs, right? But then any profit that we make, like it goes to you guys, right? Like, and then we can do a larger one and let's negotiate something like that initially. Look, I would go for something like that. I haven't bought Adidas shoes in a long time, but like, would I go for something like that? Absolutely, and especially if there's an NFT tied to it from a major company. So, I definitely think that there's a place for that. And I don't know how much Nike spent on buying Artifact or however they launched that, or that how all of that worked out. But it would be interesting to see how much that company purchased Artifact for. And like, what are they going to do with it? Because one of the biggest things about Artifact is that it was tied to Nike. So now that it's not, it does have name recognition, but like they got to do something pretty big with it for it to really maintain relevance. Whereas VeVe, they still are showing that they're selling out. They still have a very because like I don't see people posting or talking about how they love their Artifact NFTs anymore, right? That's not happening.
I never saw that.
Right. Well, no, there was definitely some flexes on stuff like that where the people would post their NFT, their Artifact shoes and their NFTs and things like that back in the hype cycle. But like I had not seen that for a long time. But where I'm going with this is that VeVe still has a very lively community, right? And if that there was a partnership like that, they could demonstrate that. I really do think that could generate some buzz because people do like the digital stuff. So. But gentlemen, I do have to bounce. I know it was just a short amount of time. I love you guys. I miss you. I miss both your faces. I haven't seen you in person. And Randy too. Like Rain, I'm gonna call. I want to talk to you like tomorrow, man. It's been a while. I want to catch up with you. But then also Randy too about that message that you sent a few days ago, bro. I want to touch base with you on that at some point.
I'll always be available for you, Doc. I love you.
All right. I heard you guys. Peace out.
All right.
See you.
He's so cool. I freaking love that man. I love him so much.
So smart.
Yeah. I this is why the value that people get when I get when I listen to him is just immeasurable. And I used to tell people in Pokemon that like, hey, the price is one thing, like the price is what you pay for a certain collectible, but the value is what you get. And those two things aren't always equal. And the fact that not every week, but most weeks you can sit here and listen to them for free, just cost you your time to listen to them, or catch it on the replay and listen at 1.5x speed, is incredible. That type of knowledge that you get from him is invaluable.
Remember the old saying that those who can do and those who can't teach. Like one of the problems with like the university system and the high school system and general education is your very best at things aren't teaching because there's no money. And unless you knew them personally and they had dinner with you on a frequent basis, you didn't get to hear the opinions of people who were exceptional at things. What's fun about podcasting and YouTube and Twitter is that has changed, because some of the very best at things will often be able to be on podcasts or join somebody's, or sometimes they even have their own thing, and they're talking about whatever it is that they're exceptionally good at. And so what I love about YouTube, and I pay for YouTube Premium so that I don't have to worry about freaking commercials, is I'm able to listen to some of the best in the world on their things and learn from them directly. You become who you spend 5 people you spend most time with. Well, those 5 people that you spend the most time with are like Alex Hormozy or other very successful business people. And in the crypto space, finding those best ones that you like the most that get it and listening to them and spending so that you're able to really start thinking like they do. Because what I found in life is be careful who you take advice from, because you'll end up having the life of that person. Because if you do things exactly the same way as they do things, you'll often end up with same results over time. And so, like, yeah, you're looking for people that are really good at things to listen to them. And Doc is amazing. In his day job, he gets paid extremely well, and he gets paid extremely well for very good reasons, because he's exceptionally bright. And no, he'll never get hired by a university, not unless he's just doing it for fun. Why? Because they can't afford to pay him what he's worth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're very lucky that he likes to do this and he does it for free. Going back to what you said about be careful whose advice you take, because you might end up like them if you take that. I think that's true 99.99% of the time, but there was one time outside of a Wawa in New Jersey. There was this, like, I had a rough night. I was hungover, and I just needed like a Wawa bacon and cheese sandwich, a muscle melt, just hangover food. And this like homeless guy addict was like, he just said like, "You all right?" Because I was not looking good. And I was like, rough night.
The addict is telling you you're not looking good.
He says, I don't know if he knew I don't know if he was knocked out, but he's just like, you know what? At the end of the day ends. And I was like, yeah, it does. And then like you'll get through this. Like it whatever you're going through now, like the day is going to end. And like that was just, I still remember that from like 12 years ago. Yeah, wild times. So every now and then, sometimes you can get inspiration.
Well, he was giving you an advice that he's an expert on, that bad days eventually end. And so he is an expert on that subject. Now, you might not take financial advice from him or, economic data or other things, but like advice that, hey, today, as bad as it feels, it will end. He's probably an expert on that subject.
Yeah. That's what I love podcasts. You get to, for finance, obviously, aside from you and Doc, all the other names that you mentioned, you have collecting, you have people like me and Jeremy Padower. And then for like health, you have like Dr. Ron Patrick, you have Joe Rogan, like you have all these people that are just experts at what they do. And that's what they spend their time doing. You get
Dr.
to learn from
Fauci says Joe Rogan doesn't know what he's talking about. So how can I listen to Joe Rogan? Because Dr. Fauci's amazing. Yeah, I love Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I saw the video that CNN put out where Joe Rogan, after he took the horse medicine, he looked very gray and sick. But then I did see a video that Joe Rogan put out, like, hey, here's the original video, and it's him normal, and they made him gray. Like, that was diabolical. What CNN
I know, CNN, bless their hearts, dude. They pull every shenanigan in the book. It's like if, in Russia, their news station is called Pravda, and you just know that they're lying to you. Like CNN has taken that to a whole new level of whatever our belief is, we're going to make sure the video backs up what our belief is. If we need to color it, we need to selectively edit it, whatever we need to do, because we're not a news source. We're a political agenda source.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most major news outlets like Fox News, you could say a very similar thing to, just a different political agenda.
No. Fair point. There is, speaking of agendas, I know that whenever somebody posts on X, they typically have an agenda. Now, the agenda could be very good. It's like, hey, my agenda is to educate my fans, do whatever. But, agendas can change. Agendas could be influenced. That's why you have the influencers. They start off with their own, and then people are like, hey, you should tell people about this and talk them into this. And we're being a paycheck. Most people will do it. But Tat Thang, yes, this is his name on X, had a hot take that I want your opinion on. He said, NFTs didn't die. The pitch did. 4 years ago when NFTs exploded, people said it mattered because of what they could become. Digital art, PFPs, domains, usernames, tickets, all of these things. From medical records, financial NFTs, legal contracts. And the pitch was huge, and the future sounded inevitable. Fast forward to now, and nobody talks about what the use case is anymore. All anyone asks is, like, what's the floor? And that's the uncomfortable truth. Most NFT conversations collapsed into price watching, not product building. Now, here's what gets missed. You do have projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club, Pudgy Penguins, Memeland, Azuki, Chimpers, a bunch of others. And they just stopped selling the tech. They put characters first, content first, distribution first, community first. And NFTs became the back end, not the headline. No one buys a Pudgy plush or watches a Chimpers video or follows Azuki anime because it's on chain. They do it because they like the character, they like the story. And crypto helps organize ownership, rewards, access, and upside after the internet exists. And he says that NFTs didn't fail, but bad framing does. And what do people already love, and how quietly can NFTs support it? I think VeVe's already hit that nail on the head because they have the best IP in the world. None really of their own, it's all other people's, but it's all in one place. Is there merit to what he says, or is there still a lot of people talking about the technology of it that we're just not seeing because we're so in this fishbowl of NFTs and collectibles that we have?
Well, so let's rewind back to 2018, 2019. There had been like the first or one of the first NFT projects. They're called CryptoPunks. And the floor was selling for about 1 ETH, and you get 1 ETH at the time for anywhere between 80 to 100 bucks. And people were like, they're dead. They're dead. Like, this thing is never going to happen. Nobody was talking about use cases for NFTs. It's like, yeah, you can't even use them for anything, and who cares? And oh, bad graphics. And then they went to like $300,000 floor from essentially 100 bucks. And it's like, well, how did that happen? Well, the use case kind of developed. And what was the use case? Your profile pic for your Twitter account became the primary use case for a CryptoPunk, because if you had one, you must understand crypto because you got one early, and that became the primary use case for it. And it was a powerful use case. And so, like, in a bear market, just everyone shits on it, right? So I remember Amazon, and their stock was down for forever, and people were like, yeah, they've been bleeding in the red for forever, and they're a bookstore, and they don't know what they're doing, and blah, 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 blah. You know, and Amazon kept working through it and expanding what they were doing. And yeah, they were bleeding red ink every year, year after year, until they weren't. And their use case developed until, like, people in the US, like, oh, I need to go to Walmart. Oh, shoot, Amazon can deliver it to my door in like 4 hours. And Walmart has had to adapt and have a delivery service to be able to compete with Amazon, because Amazon can actually often have the items faster and individually delivered, like crazy speeds. And that was from a company everyone complained about, and it was the worst, and it's never going to survive, and it's never going to succeed. So are NFTs going to survive and succeed? In general, yes. Like, which ones are going to end up being massively expensive in the future? Probably the ones that are already expensive, given things like the bear market. If the floor is way, way down, but it's still way, way high, they're probably going to survive, and they'll go way, way up. But it's hard to tell exactly. You're taking a speculative bet. It isn't a guaranteed bet. It's still a risky bet. But like Bored Apes probably cemented into history, CryptoPunks probably cemented into history. The reason I make the VeVe bet on VeVe collectibles is because it's less risky, in my opinion, because it's a massive intellectual property that people want. We're talking Darth Vader, Boba Fett. We're talking about Grogu. We're talking about Toy Story and just other collectibles with brands people know and love that there are huge collector bases for, that just don't know about digital collectibles yet. And when it comes back in the narrative and everyone's talking about NFTs and digital collectibles, to me, it seems like a safer bet that people are going to be like, oh my gosh, Toy Story, it's on. Oh, cool. And I can have it in augmented reality and I can play around with it. With that said, and back to the Nike conversation, why doesn't VeVe have like an avatar that then you could get brand name shoes like Nike, or if Nike doesn't want to play ball, Reebok and Adidas and other brands, and put them on your avatar? And then they could get other things like, well, they did the Louis Vuitton thing with the Louis Vuitton shoes, but like, yeah, I mean, Louis Vuitton boots, but yeah, Louis Vuitton shoes and other things. Why not have that? Why not have that more visible, that you could share your avatar and what he is blinged out with? Because you already have augmented reality, but why not be able to put it right on your character? And that gives them an avenue to go after these brands. And it gives an avenue that collectors can display their cool ass shit. It's like, oh, I got Louis Vuitton shoes, and I got Gucci jacket, and I have this, and I've got these pants from such and such designer. Yeah, like, well, I think that's innovation, and I think people would buy that. It would do well. I think that's what Artifact was kind of going after, but VeVe already has this huge user base. But so far, they haven't done anything with like an avatar that you can put clothes on. But why not?
That's a good point. And then they would be able to sell their VeVe jackets and their headbands and their wristbands, and maybe even be able to sell some VeVe tattoos that you could put on your avatar, and then run around buck naked, showing it off. I imagine there would have to be some type of guidelines for that. Can't go around completely naked. But anyway, first off, sleeping. Love you, sleeping. Bezos says that think about things customers always want, like lower prices and faster delivery. So this is something I want to go back to what Doc said before. He said a company that he couldn't remember the name of, that they fired 4,000 employees because they mentioned that AI would do everything. And then they did that too early. They had to hire a bunch of those guys back. I think that what a lot of people, including business owners, are missing is that, yes, you could have, let's say if one person you paid $50,000 to, and maybe they did, $75,000 worth of work, and that's what their value was. And with AI, maybe instead of having 3 people that you need to pay $150,000 to get that $225,000 worth of value, now with AI, you only need that one person to get that $225,000 worth of value. And you could essentially fire those other 2 guys to make up for that. But what I think a couple of companies did is that they used AI as just a lever, and they say, wait, why am I only firing these guys and to keep the same amount of value that I have? Like, I get it, you are creating wider margins on that one person, but why not keep the other 2 guys and create wider margins on not just one person, but 3 person? Now you have $775,000 worth of value for the same price that you were paying those 3. And I think a lot of companies went and they recognized that, forcing other people to hire their stuff back. But then you also have, people were asking about ICE before, and that's a very, very politically charged thing. But a consequence of that is that you have Ford Motors that's out 5,000 jobs now because they were hiring illegals. A lot of the ICE agents took a lot of people out, including people there, and there's a deficit of workers, and they have trouble filling these jobs because I guess not everyone's qualified. So now you have, again, a lot of companies that are really, I don't want to say scraping the bottom of the barrel, but they're looking for a lot of people to fill these jobs, and they're just right now, not a lot of people are stepping up. And I don't know the consequences of that long term.
Yeah, ICE is a politically charged subject, but generally I believe that countries can enforce their own immigration laws. Like, why this situation has been set up so that people come in and it was like a kind of a wink and a nod and nobody will check. And it's like, that is a recipe for a permanent underclass, which doesn't get integrated into society. And you can keep almost like, not quite slavery, but almost like at the slave level, because they don't integrate with the language, they don't integrate in things. And it was a political thing that they could buy them off with social services paid for by everyone else, buy off their votes and stuff. And so look, the people in that don't vote for Trump. And so Trump is eliminating those social power of his political enemies through enforcement of laws that are already on the books, that everyone's agreed with those laws in the past. They just now don't agree with the enforcement of those laws. It's like, look, is he doing it the right way? I have no comment on that. I have an opinion, but there's no reason to comment on that on OMI as my homie. Like, I have lots of political things that are impacting crypto. Does that impact crypto? I mean, it creates turmoil, and turmoil usually brings markets down. And whenever you have a change agent like Trump in, that creates all kinds of turmoil, because normally Democrat or Republican, not too much different happens. Whoever ends up in office, like, I'm going to change the world. And he gets in there and he does almost the same thing as what the other person does. But that's not Trump. He's like a change agent, like what's his name? Teddy Roosevelt was a change agent, and he massively shook things up, and he made the U.S. way better for it. I think that's what Trump's doing, and it's going to make the U.S. way better. It's going to get rid of a whole bunch of corruption and a whole bunch, gosh, the amounts of fraud going on and everything. Everyone should be really pissed about that, and the Democrats clearly have known that's going on. They, at least the ones in office. And they didn't care because those people were voting for him. And so then they're like, no, 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 don't enforce it against these people. It's like, they're like, don't kick our voters out of the country is what they're really saying. And it's like, you know, the amount of fraud going on in the US, and that goes on in Canada and other places. But boy, it's gotten exorbitant in the last number of years. I don't think anyone had any idea. So Trump's going to do what he's going to do. We'll see. He moves quickly. I can't believe the amount of stuff going on right now between, the problems related to that, Venezuela, now Iran, and like, geez, the amount of turmoil. I mean, we had Manu from Definity on, and he's like, you watch, 2026 is going to be the year of war. And I'm thinking, Trump. And then you have Venezuela going on. And technically, that's not war, but boy, I didn't see that coming. And then Iran erupting in these protests and stuff. And like the Iranian regime is like a terrible regime and has been for a long time. And I would love to see the people have a more fair justice system than what they have under the mullahs in Iran. We'll see what happens there. Geez, a lot is happening in 2026. And we're just like, 2 weeks into it. This is crazy.
Yeah. Trump also mentioned Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico. Now, I've been to Mexico and Colombia, and there are spots there that are just beautiful, and the economy's great. Cuba, though, is the complete opposite. There's like, I don't know if there's any places there where the economy's good. So maybe that's the next one.
There's some place where the wealthy go that is just very, very nice, but like only the very wealthy, because socialism creates the opposite of what they say it's going to create. Creates a complete aristocracy ruling class at the very top, and then everyone else is poor. And essentially, if you're involved in the government, you get all the contracts, you make all this money, and you're rich, and everyone else is equally poor.
It's like that in Kuwait too.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
Kuwait, they have the oil money, so it's like if you had access to the oil money because your family owned XYZ land, then you're super rich, and then everyone else is poor.
Well, all citizens. So I should mention that most people in Kuwait are not actually Kuwaitis. They take people from Philippines, Thailand. They just and they just pay them to do all the work, because everyone in Kuwait gets a stipend from the oil, and they're just so oil rich that like I don't know if any actual Kuwaiti has done like any work where because they just import all the labor. And that so that is a special case. So yeah, fair point. I'm curious where we had an Action Comics 9.0 sell for 15 million, and the person who brokered the deal, they didn't have any they didn't say who the buyer or the seller was. And part of me always thinks that it's one of these Saudi princes, Kuwaiti people, or just Middle Eastern people that got the Arab money, and they came in with that. So the 9.0 that sold was actually Nicolas Cage's at one point. It got stolen from his house in like 2002. It got recovered years later in a warehouse. He sold it for 2.2 million, like 10 years ago or something. Now it's 15 million, and that's what it sold for. Is a 9.0. It's got
quite the story, right? Formerly Nicolas Cage is stolen, then recovered, then sold. I mean, that's what would be the beauty of NFTs. You'll be able to see the history and be like, oh my gosh, this NFT was actually owned by Randy Chavez. And that might have some extra value because there's a story behind, and because it's on the blockchain, that story is immutable, meaning provable, and like it's there in the record.
Yeah. So I know Candy or Palm or whatever it was had a bunch of DC ones. I don't know if they had Action Comics. I don't think they did. But that's one of the things that I think VeVe has been trying to get DC Comics on VeVe for a while. Now, there's probably been some offers thrown out by any license that VeVe tried to get, but it's just the cost is just too high. But right now, what cost should they pay? What cost do you think would be acceptable for them to get DC Comics? Because I know like NFTs are down in the ground right now, but DC Comics, I think, eventually makes money printers go burr for them at some point in the future.
Yeah, one of the challenges if they get DC Comics is they kind of end up having, well, they don't have a monopoly, thank goodness, because DC Comics, a bunch of them have been printed on Candy, which who knows what will happen with candy? Somebody will buy it. So that helps out that there's at least another marketplace. But, you know, from a user standpoint, I'd love for VeVe to get DC Comics so that there's one easy place to be able to buy and sell and worry about my stuff rather than all these other markets. Now, down the road, like, there will be new companies and coming into the place that, like, other than VeVe, most of the competitors have failed during this bear market because they just don't have enough of a user base to get the revenues to sustain themselves. But you don't want VeVe to be a monopoly, but if fairly early on, it's not so bad if a leader really emerges. What's bad is if 15 years from now, like, they're the only player in the sandbox, then it creates a problem. But I would love to see them get DC Comics, even if they have to reprint some ones that are already been done. And I bought a bunch on candy that I still have, and I'm going to hold on to those because they'll still have their value. I mean, those are going to be the first mints of those. Those are going to be the actual first appearances, and that will have some extra value too.
So, guys, be advised, ChatGPT is incredible, but it's not the end-all, be-all. Doesn't have all-knowing knowledge. It keeps telling Booth here that you can buy Action Comics NFT on VeVe. Yeah, you definitely can't do that. ChatGPT is not going to be one of those things that can help in all scenarios. It can only help in minor ones. Ask it to play Pokemon, it will give you the wrong advice. Ask it to certain things. Again, if you are an expert in a field, you probably know more than ChatGPT. Is that Raxel?
Yes, Miss Rain magically appeared.
Hey girl, miss you.
Came in and brought me some food. Thank you, baby.
I've discovered how to make chicken with the green chili verde. It's so good. So it's been breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
It's been amazing. I was like, why go to Chipotle and some of these other places when what you make is like better than there?
It's true. I don't want a restaurant, but people tell me I should open one.
No. Yes, exactly. Nobody wants to work 75 hours a week to lose, $15,000 a month.
No. Sounds terrible.
Most restaurants fail.
Yeah. So we'll just save it for ourselves.
Yes.
Unless you buy, like, maybe you have so much money, you buy a place and it's like, we're open one day a week and that's it. And
no, then she's just going to cook at our house and then our friends can come over and eat.
Yeah, I'll feed you, Randy.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we're all going to relocate to Scottsdale, and Randy's going to live right next door.
Hell yeah.
And, then you can come over and eat some of, the Rain restaurant food without having to actually have a restaurant.
I was very sad when you left our house. I liked having you here, and then when you left, I was like,
I loved being there too. I guess I left just in time too, because I got uber sick like 3 days later. So I saved y'all from that.
Yeah.
Probably something I picked up at the airport though. So if I stayed, it probably wouldn't have mattered. I probably wouldn't have.
If you would have stayed, you wouldn't have gotten sick.
I know. I'll come back soon though. I got a lot of. Oh God. Bless me.
Bless you. Speaking of.
Don't do that. Don't put
like,
that bad juju on me. Okay.
Yeah, we got wiped out last week from Miss Rain caught it first, and she was nice enough to share it with me.
I was like, kiss me. I wanted to share.
She, and I have no idea why I gave in to her temptations. I mean, maybe someone might be able to guess. I can be
very persuasive when I want to be.
Yeah.
I understand the feeling. I get that, Fred. Anyway, I'll let you guys know when next time I'm coming by. I'll keep y'all posted.
That would be amazing.
I'm gonna go see Fam Bam Thursday. I'm staying with her for a couple of days.
Oh, that's awesome! Be advised, I do call her randomly, so if you, so I'll probably talk to you at some point during.
I'll just talk like mad crap, over the phone. Yeah.
You totally can. It's cool. It's all good.
Awesome. Well, goodbye.
Thanks for saying hi, Miss Rain.
Yeah. Catch you later. Yeah.
Well, I'll be right back.
Yep. Okay, we have some other stuff that we can go over here. We just have silver reaching a new all-time high of 90 doll hairs per ounce. Go in and get that bread, everybody, because that's a big win. Rain, do you have any silver?
No, I'm in this crazy risky thing called crypto, and worse, I'm in crazy risky crypto altcoins. So it's like silver just isn't volatile enough for me, but it has been crazy watching the pumps. But if you think about it, it's like, yay, silver's up, and it's like doubled in price. And it's like, well, that's better than altcoins, which are, down sometimes 80 or 90% from an already good deal.
Yeah.
But that's just because you haven't seen the upside of what altcoins do when they do turn around. It's like you can be down 90% and still end up 50x ahead with altcoins. It's like, is silver going to go 50x? Boy, the world, watch out if there is a reason why silver goes 50x from here.
There was some rumors that the UK is going to ban gold, and if they do, then and people can't have gold, or they buy it back, then yeah, maybe people go for silver or palladium or platinum or copper. Copper is probably going to be a big one. Whatever precious metal hasn't run yet is probably going to have its day. Again, gold. People are probably going to be taking some profits off from gold and silver and putting it into other stuff. And what stuff hasn't run yet, it's very possible that it does run because of that. Well, it says, Randy, how is your friend's trade who sold all that silver last year? JK, loving the show, guys, as always. I mean, when I had him sell I think like 300 ounces. The dude is a massive gold and silver holder. So I think he's got, give me one sec here. Last I had heard, last I had heard he had about 5,000 ounces. So he's got almost 500,000 in silver, and that's just in silver. For gold, I imagine he's just got, and granted, that's just the bullion that he has. That's not including the numismatic. The numismatic stuff that he has is just got super rare things. Now there's some things that are scarce, but they're not really that pretty. They're not really that coveted. And there's some things that are rare but necessarily not scarce, where there's a limited amount of them, but there's always them on the market. But he's fine. I don't think he cares one way or the other. I talked to him a few months ago. He's got 2 kids and a very needy baby mama. So I'm trying to get him out to like an event, but he just doesn't come because he's always got something going on with the kids, which is fine. But he's got a bunch of Marvel sub 100 NFTs. Like, he's a big fan of the Marvel Mighties. And again, I've been trying to get him out. Like, he's got a couple of the Marvel Funko Pops from Iron Man. So he's got a bunch of those stuff, and he's really cool. I actually made him a character in my monkey comic that's coming out next year. Actually, this year. He's a wild one though. He's like me in 30 years. Like if I survive another 30 years, that's what the guy's like. He's very wild. Kuma hates seeing the price of gold and silver lately. He sold all my bags several months back. Then, oh yeah, it's always how it works.
You're gonna feel like that in the bull run too, even with your altcoins, because like if you're being smart, you're gonna sell them, and it will keep going up from there, because the likelihood that you time the top is really, really low likelihood. Just like the likelihood that you time the bottom exactly on the bear market.
Yeah,
it's just hard to tell exactly where it is. So it's like you'll sell and it'll go up higher and be like, shoot,
That's true. Can't wait for it. I don't know when the bottom is. I'll ask this to you. If you get, let's say, great Uncle Murray, never heard of the man, no idea who he was, distant relative, but for whatever reason, he, let's say he read about you, saw your YouTube video, and it's like, you know what, everyone else in the family pissed me off. That's why you don't know about me. I distance myself. But you get $1 million from him. Didn't know he existed. It doesn't affect you emotionally. How much more of that are you putting into crypto, and how much are you putting into safer things, like just shares of companies? Just because it's, $1 million, I know it's not like 100 million, like you can't live off it. It's not really life-changing, but it can be if you put it in the right thing. Do you put it in all at once? Do you put in 100 grand and then every month you put in another 100 grand? By the end of the year, you've deployed it all. What would be your strategy with that? Because crypto mostly has done nothing but gone down, the alts anyway. How do you know what's your strategy?
I would deploy a bunch of it right now, and look, my risk tolerance, it would be into crypto. I wouldn't put it into safer things like equity in companies, unless maybe if I had access to equity in a company that would, 2 or 3x coming up fairly shortly, maybe that would be interesting, because I wouldn't deploy all of it right away, but I'd deploy a bunch of it, maybe 300,000 and then another 100,000 every week until then. Why, who knows? Maybe with all the turmoil going on, maybe prices stay down for another while. But like, prices are amazingly low, and so it's, I'd probably deploy 300,000, then 100,000 next week, 100,000 the week after, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000. And maybe I end up missing and things go crazy and the last couple 100,000 get deployed when prices are higher. That's all right, because I deployed a whole bunch while prices were really low. And say it does take a while to go down, then I end up dollar cost averaging at amazing low prices. Maybe even some of it goes lower. And, I wouldn't be unhappy with that. Okay. So most of it into crypto. I guess if there was an equity deal that looked really, really juicy, maybe 200,000 equity deal. But most equity deals you're talking about, it's a long-term play and it's not very liquid. And so you're looking at 2 or 3 or 10 years before you can really get that money out. That's what I don't like about equity deals.
Good call. Good point. Been going off almost an hour and a half here. Anything you want to go over before we bounce?
No, just saw a Big A's thing. My parents have a 52-pound solid silver statue from a famous artist at Backdoor, trying to talk them into selling it while silver is at 85. Yes. Oh my gosh. 52 pounds of solid silver. Are you kidding me? The value on that thing, the melted value on that thing, you could buy like the Mona Lisa almost. I mean, not really, but that is huge. Silver at one point was so much cheaper, and now it's gone crazy.
Yeah, that's tens of thousands of dollars there. Put 100% into crypto is too much. I think you at least got to put 50% into market, making that average 10. It depends on the person. If there's someone that has nothing, that if you're starting off basically from zero, working paycheck to paycheck, then yeah. If you're people that already have a good base and you already have a good, then you probably don't need to do that. But either way, it's
that answer was specific to my situation. Everyone is in different situations. In my situation, I would feel comfortable with that.
Yeah. I would do, but also I understand that not everyone has access to any high risk lending markets where it's not 10 to 11%, it's like 18% like guaranteed.
Yes.
Where that becomes a lot, and it's not dependent on any market. It's not contingent on any, the ebbs and flows of certain things. So yeah, that might be not a bad idea, because then you get money every month. That's fine. Anyway, if that's
I plan to deploy into that, but like timing wise, you see money supply growth incoming, right? So then with that altcoin rally, so it's like, look, what I deployed at this time when things are so abysmally low, and you have that maybe 3 or 6 or things go bad 9, 12 months away, which is a really high probability. That's why I would take that strategy, because we're not very far away from that. And then I would deploy, when I exfil some of that, I deploy it into assets that make me, 10, 11%, or, if I have access to higher rates, great.
Same. We got one last comment here before we get out. Actually, we have a couple more. Abe says, fair point. Just a little shell shocked after 10 out of 10, LOL. 10/10, October 10th, that big bloody, yeah, fair. That was the largest red day in crypto, I think, ever. Omi says, Randy, I saw you say 50 million market cap is still kind of high for OMI. What do you think it should be? So I didn't mean that it was high and that it should go lower. I'm just saying that comparatively to other businesses that have tokens that are doing things similarly enough to them, where they're at a fraction of that, $2 million market cap, $15 million market cap. I think that just OMI right now, even though it's just been so just ravaged by the bear market and fells and FUD, that it's just held up pretty well. And again, I'm not going to say it's high because it was at over $1 billion, right? But it is high for some of the others that are compared to it. Like it's, when you're growing, it's like, oh yeah, you're in the 51st percentile of height or whatever. That's basically what I mean where I meant it was high. Like I don't think it should be down here right now, but that's just the way it crumbled. But guys, to send you a pick of the statue rain in DM, Boo says there's no traditional cycles no more, maybe no super cycle. And what is there? As Democrats tried to tell us in 2020, this is the new normal. And what that means, I'm not 100% sure right now. Stephen says, almost all my money is in the market, but I've made money on companies and taking shots at home runs. Same here, Sleeping. Same here. Actually, most of my wealth is not in crypto. Anyway, Rain, I do have to talk to you offline, but for right meow, this is a great show. Thank you all for coming in to an episode of OMI is my homie. Everyone say bye-bye to Dashi. Bye-bye, Dashi. I love you.